Picture this. You're standing in the smoldering ashes of what used to be a magnificent golden theater. The velvet curtains are shredded, the stage floor is shattered, and the air is just thick with the dust of a fallen empire. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I'm stepping into the theatrical persona of the honest guest, a quiet observer who watched this very theater, the Gilded Hollow, completely collapse upon itself. But we're not just looking at a fictional world here. We're going to explore a dramatic case study of our own internal psychodynamics, mapping out exactly how your mind and mine can build these grand, towering structures of morality, only to tear them down into pure, destructive nothingness.
So, let's set the stage for this tragic play. Imagine this Gilded Hollow not just as a physical room, but as a representation of a whole society, or even your own psyche. Right at the center sits a high judge, ruling with absolute, rigid legalism. He falsely believes that his strict, sterile rules are protecting the weak. But as we're going to see, this grand moral order is actually just a mask. It's a total facade of safety that hides a much deeper, festering decay lurking right beneath the damp, dark floorboards of the stage.
What's absolutely brilliant about this framework is how it takes dry, clinical psychology and turns it into a literal cast of actors operating within the theater of our mind. Instead of just talking about the id, ego, and superego in abstract textbook terms, it gives them archetypal character roles. It puts human faces on the invisible forces battling inside us, making it incredibly clear how failing to balance these forces leads directly to a total systemic collapse.
Let's meet our cast. Down at the base, we have the id, played by the tarantula, hiding in the dark. Its core motivation is a primal hunger for revenge, seeking to enforce a flat, sterile equality where no one stands out. Opposing it is the superego, our high judge, whose defensive legalism creates an illusion of value purely to maintain safety. Think of that overly critical voice in your head that demands perfection just to avoid getting hurt. And caught right in the middle, failing entirely to harmonize these extremes, is the maladaptive ego, the jester. Instead of building bridges, the jester acts as a destructive catalyst, using nihilistic mockery to tear down the judge while secretly feeding the tarantula.
The narrative of this psychological breakdown unfolds in 5 distinct acts. We start with Act 1, the fragile order of the Gilded Hollow, moving into Act 2's mask of virtue. The tension skyrockets into a climax in Act 3 with the void mirror, which drags us straight into Act 4's architecture of retribution, before finally offering a glimmer of genuine hope and transformation in Act 5, the spirit of becoming.
To summarize the tension driving the first 2 acts, on the surface, the high judge is desperately maintaining his fragile order. He holds the gavel, he sets the rules. But beneath his feet, the tarantula is quietly spinning a hidden web, preaching a doctrine of nothingness where no one is allowed to rise above anyone else. You have this incredibly unstable dynamic. A hollow, defensive authority figure is trying to control a primal, resentful force that is actively plotting to pull everything down into the dirt.
The crucial mechanism making all this possible is the tarantula's use of weaponized resentment. The id doesn't just attack out in the open, it's smarter than that. It uses concepts like virtue and equality as a moral shield, hiding its deep venom of envy behind a mask of caring for the collective. This mechanism literally pathologizes growth. It looks at the natural human ache of becoming, the desire to improve, to excel, to climb, and labels it as a dangerous threat. It is a terrifyingly effective way to drag everyone down to the lowest common denominator.
Now we hit Act 3, the explosive climax of our play. The jester has been dancing around the throne, treating the judge's moral order like a hollow toy. But here, he performs his ultimate, devastating trick. He forces the high judge to gaze directly into the void mirror. This is the moment of total ego dissolution. The mirror instantly shatters the superego's righteous facade, stripping away the illusion that the judge is some noble guardian of the weak.
And here comes the dark narrative twist from the theater's shadows. When the high judge looks into that uncanny mirror, he doesn't see a protector. He sees that his true underlying architecture is a raw, burning desire to punish. It's the exact same primal thirst for revenge that drives the tarantula. The illusion of passive, protective justice collapses, transitioning instantly into active nihilism. The system no longer even pretends to protect. It transforms into a purposeless machine driven entirely by pure, unadulterated retribution.
With the facade utterly destroyed, the golden throne and the wooden gavel literally dissolve into ash. And rising up from these ruined floorboards is a terrifying synthesis of the superego's authority and the id's vengeance. Enter the skeletal red judge. This entity doesn't care about rules or safety anymore. The Red Judge trades the gavel for a burning branding iron. His only goal is to leave permanent, silent scars on the world. It is the ultimate manifestation of active nihilism, existing solely to inflict pain and tear down whatever remains.
Look at this stark contrast between these two destructive outcomes. On one side, the gesture destroys the world through cynical erosion, just mocking the moral order until it crumbles. On the other side, the Red Judge destroys the world through active, burning retribution. Both are terrifying. Both represent a complete failure of the psyche to adapt and grow. And frankly, regardless of whether a system is destroyed by a joker's mockery or burned to the ground by an authoritarian's punishment, both paths leave the Gilded Hollow in absolute ruins.
Standing here as the honest guest, watching the ash settle around me, a profound realization hits. The chaotic jester and the tyrannical Red Judge seem like total opposites, but they are actually driven by the exact same venom of envy. They're two sides of the same resentful coin. It's a fundamental fear of growth. When a society or an individual mind becomes terrified of the painful process of genuine self-improvement, they will always choose the stagnant dust of revenge over the hard work of building something new.
But our play doesn't have to end in the ashes. Enter Act 5 and the introduction of Das Wanderer. High above the chaotic, ruined valley of the theater, Das Wanderer looks down and fundamentally rejects the tarantula's suffocating web of forced equality. Das Wanderer is the clinical, hopeful alternative to this entire tragedy. This character represents the adaptive ego, the part of the psyche that refuses to participate in the Hollow's self-destructive machine and breaks out of the cycle of nihilism.
This brings us to a brilliant philosophical anchor, the Nietzschean concepts of the will to power and self-overcoming. You see, Das Wanderer doesn't just ignore the venom of envy, he sublimates it. He takes that raw, primal energy that the tarantula uses for passive resentment and channels it into the painful, glorious struggle of self-transformation. He shifts from being a victim of the valley to actively becoming the creative architect of his own soul.
So how exactly does Das Wanderer achieve this? It's a three-step transfiguration. Step 1. Reject the id's trap. You have to absolutely refuse that flat web of forced equality that pathologizes excellence. Step 2. Abandon the superego's comforting illusions of stagnant, sterile safety. And finally, Step 3. You must step out of the theater entirely and embrace the fire of transformation. You have to choose the glorious, unequal, and difficult mountain path. This is how the adaptive ego rises above the ruins of the self.
Which leaves us with a critical reflection on our own internal architecture. The Gilded Hollow isn't just a story, it exists inside all of us. The tarantula of resentment and the high judge of sterile safety are constantly fighting for control over your mind. So, the ultimate question is this: will you remain in the suffocating safety of the theater's dust, feeding your own internal tarantula and waiting for the Red Judge to rise? Or will you step out of the ruins, brave the fire of your own transformation, and begin the long climb toward the summit? The path is yours to choose.